So at this point, I think I just have to be honest. I keep watching these videos, but at this point, I don't even know why I keep like reacting to WoW content. Why I'm even covering anything related to Dragonflight, considering that as it stands, I have no realistic plans of actually playing the game, and it feels bad because there's this like when you played World of Warcraft for the longest time and then like months or even years pass and you're not back in the game, there's just this big I don't know, this urge, and it's like a remnant of your addiction that you used to have that just kind of keeps you, I don't know, keeps pushing you into that content. It keeps pushing you to think about the game or to play the game or whatever. And so far, I've been actually very successful at not feeling that at all. Since I started playing Final Fantasy, I've actually been fully happy to the point where I know that I will never go back to World of Warcraft to like main it as an MMORPG. I found my home in Eorzea and I'm very happy there. But also I am curious to see where the story is going to go and where the game as a the game as a project is going to go. It's something that I've been so involved with, like, during the years, and it's just hard for me to let go every time there's a new cinematic on YouTube or whatever. Even if I'm not playing the game, I watch it, I think about it. And even with everything that went on last year with Activision, with Blizzard and whatnot, I really hope that at some point, at least that portion of the company can recover from like the bad things that have been happening, and hopefully they can, go ahead and make a new, not new, but like make a good game. And I am always curious to hear about like what Asmongold has to say about this, as someone who still has a lot of insight into the game, who still plays the game. I am inclined to listen to that feedback and actually think about it. So when people ask me if I'm gonna be playing Dragonflight, the answer is I honestly am not going to. Like, I regardless of what the game is like, I do not see myself engaging with the game on a regular basis. So no high end content, no raiding, no grinding, no nothing. If I was ever to, dip my toes into Dragonflight, it would be out of curiosity to see what the new systems are like. For example, like crafting, like I don't know, dragon flying or whatever it's called. But the moment those systems show to be super grindy, let's say, okay, I say crafting, but that is contradictory to what I said. I said that I wouldn't get involved with anything that is like long and grindy. It's not that I would want to spend ages, crafting, making gold or whatever. I would just want to see what it's like. But also, I could do that through YouTube videos, through other forms of content. So I don't necessarily have to be in the game. I don't even have to be in the game to see the story, like the main cinematics or whatever. Yes, I would have to be in game to like see all these like little quests and whatnot, but because like hard, like those are quests that you're hardly ever going to find on YouTube, like through, I don't know, videos or playthroughs or whatever. So if I were to play World of Warcraft again, I would just like level one character to see what the experience is like. But like if that experience would cost me like what, 60 euro to just get from like level, what's even the maximum level right now? Honestly, I forgot. I haven't played in such a long time. Is it 60? Is it 70? Like, what's the max level in Shadowlands? I don't even know anymore. It's like if I'm gonna pay what, 50 euro to just get from point A to point B and not engage with the game. I don't know how. I don't know if that's gonna be worth it for me. But as a content creator, I do recognize that it is a form of investment to go and at least investigate and see what it feels like and be able to offer some sort of feedback to people. So I'm on that from that point of view, I'm actually very conflicted, and I'm just going to have to, wait and see what happens with alpha, what happens with beta. I honestly doubt I'm gonna be getting into any of those. I've shut too many Blizzard doors to make that happen. But without further ado, let's actually watch the video.
So, boys, today I wanted to make a video and talk to you all a little bit about two of my main concerns going into Dragonflight. Now, I think that a lot of you guys have been seeing this. I've been talking about it. Other people have been talking about it. People have been posting about it. There's a very good chance that we could get the alpha for Dragonflight this week. People are saying Thursday. I hope it's sooner. Honestly, it can't come soon enough.
I honestly have no idea how people even know about this. I know that there have been some leaks and some what are they, like, data mine things from like websites and whatnot, but like how did they get the date?
What is it, 5 months until the game's supposed to be released? I'm getting a little bit nervous, okay? Now, I do think that there is a possibility.
Wow, to me, like, it doesn't even feel like it's 5 months. To me, it's still like early spring. Like, I don't know what happened to my months. Like, my May to June, July is like what, like half of July already? I don't understand what happened to my timeline, to my, like, to my days. Like, I've been just so caught up with, with working, with, taking care of my son, with everything. Like, I just don't even know where the time had gone. And now it's like July. It's like what, 5 months until New Year? Like, what?
That they could release this game and it could actually be ready. Now, is it something I would bet on? No, not necessarily. However, I do think that it's possible. Why do I think that? Well, it's very simple. You don't have conduits, covenants, soulbinds, let's see, so Shadowlands legendaries.
Okay, so the lack of these systems makes the game not easy to develop, but I'm going to go ahead and say that people are much less burdened by these things. Unless there is a system that they're not technically calling a system, but like, what if they call it a pathway or whatever, and then they go ahead and say to the press, like, oh, but it's technically not a system, like the same way they did with Diablo and Diablo gear. They said technically you can't buy gear through the shop. Like, what if it's not a system? What if it's a form of progression or whatever? So honestly, my trust is like zero at this point. And when they say there's gonna be no system, I'm seeing that as like a legal, like a just like a thing that they would say to the press, that they can later say like, oh, but that wasn't a system, it was a way to engage with the game or whatever. Like,
And probably something else that I didn't think of. All of these things that you all have to balance across 3 or 4 different spectrums of content. And yeah, guess what? I bet it's going to be pretty hard to do that, to balance all those things properly. And I think Blizzard does their best generally, but it's really an impossible task. So taking all of those things, taking all those little micro systems that we get for every expansion, they go into the garbage, and just putting them into the garbage proactively for the next expansion, great idea. And anyway, I think it causes, like, it's like a force multiplier on development time whenever you have these things, because of all the unintended and just incidental interactions between the pieces. So anyway, what are my main concerns going into Dragonflight? What are the main things that I'm worried about and concerned about? There are two main things. Number one is going to be how Blizzard responds to feedback and how they iterate systems that do exist in the game. And the second thing is going to be the alts content and how people play alts in Dragonflight.
before we continue, I do kind of want to address these things from my point of view. First of all, I hope that their perspective on what they see as an optimal alt gameplay has changed, considering that a lot of people have started playing games like Final Fantasy and other games that have better alt progression systems or lack of them. And I think people at this point are a little bit spoiled. And now that the community has discovered Final Fantasy 14 at large, if they do introduce something that is extremely unfriendly, people are mostly going to go back to looking at those games that have better systems, and they're gonna be like, "Hey, why can't you do things, the way this game does it, or the way I don't know that game does it, or whatever?" It's a tricky thing for Blizzard right now, and I think this is gonna be a good time for us to see how much they've evolved throughout the years, and how their attitude has shifted from, "Oh, we're the only MMORPG out there, so people are going to want to waste their time on this game forever," to, "Hey, we now have viable competition that actually has a bunch of our players playing that game now. How about we make something to make their transition back to World of Warcraft a little bit easier, a little bit more friendly, and how do we not piss them off to the point that they're just gone after, well, now 1 month of being subbed, because you can no longer do that, but 2 months."
These are the two main things, and I think that we're going to talk about responding to feedback in a broader sense first, then we're going to move into the alts.
When it comes to, yeah, I forgot to talk about the first one. When it comes to responding to feedback, I honestly don't know what they're gonna do. Like, it's obvious that they have wanted to try to do this. Even the Shadow Council that they've created, like, it did have a purpose of like acquiring feedback. I honestly don't know how that went. I think, like, for a big company like that, I don't understand why they don't utilize polls more. When you have a large community and when you can't read all sorts of feedback or whatever. I'm not just talking about email polls that from time to time someone will post on Twitter, and they're going to be like, "Hey, I received a poll in the email," and then the rest of the community is like, "What the fuck, like, I never got anything." So they seem to like select a random number of accounts for them to receive a poll, or maybe it's not random, maybe it's based on some triggers, like, "Oh, this person has played this or that game, or for this or that amount of time, or whatever." So I think they need to utilize modern technologies of mass voting and polls and opinion making, and providing feedback through means of, like, I don't know, Twitter or YouTube polls or something like that, to just get the feel of what the general community wants. If they ask a question and if the overwhelming answer is a yes or no, without them going through 1,000 Twitter replies like, "Hey, it's a yes or it's a no, but hey, here's another issue you should be talking about," and they completely move away from the original subject, and they move on to, I don't know, complain about something or say something else, like that's not constructive for the question that was being asked. And I think they just need to be asking more concise questions and let people speak their mind, and not just be like, "Hey, you can comment on our Twitter or on Reddit or whatever, but no one's ever going to read it or take action or whatever." Like, I think polls are just a good viable way for them to do these things. As a very uneducated person, I guess, on how to lead a big company Twitter account or whatever, maybe it's a horrible idea. I don't know, but I think that some of these things could work.
So the main problem that I think that Blizzard has with many games, whether this is StarCraft 2, whether this is Diablo 3, whether it was mini Warcraft expansions, and whether it was Overwatch, I think that Blizzard generally ships a relatively good game, and then they either do too much or not enough to correct for problems with the game, because metas form, unbalances, and bad design is then discovered, basically, and this is really of no fault of Blizzard in many cases. It's just how games go. And so whenever they shape up the meta and try to change it up, sometimes it just fucks everything up, and you end up with 5 tanks in one team in Overwatch, or you end up with 1 tank on a team, which, by the way, I think is too many, in Arena in WoW. And you have all these weird things happen, and in general, I think Blizzard is very relatively decent, I would say, at shipping a good game, at least, for the sake of it being a release product. What they have a problem with, however, is maintaining the live development and live service aspect of that game.
I think the reason for this is because Blizzard as a company focuses a lot on what's going to happen at launch. They, apart from like all the bugs and shit that goes down at launch, they have a very well thought out marketing campaign for their new games, and I am sure that their games, even with many faults at launch, they do go through a lot of checks, and just a lot of them just making sure that that's the game they want to release, for better or for worse. But then when it comes to like the first patch or the second patch or whatever, it feels like all matters of these I don't know, checks or whatever, like it feels like everything stops until the next expansion comes around, because the moment an expansion is launched, everyone's already focused on what they're gonna do with like the next expansion, and I feel like the entire team is then more focused on delivering the next product, which I think, in my opinion, comes too soon, considering how many terrible launches we've had, even though they were well advertised, because people just didn't have enough time to both maintain the previous expansion and release a good expansion in itself. So I think what they really need to start working on is dividing the attention. Every expansion patch is just as important as the expansion launch, because the patches are what keeps your game alive throughout the years, pretty much until the next expansion. And we've seen firsthand what can happen when you have one bad patch after another, and I hope that this is a lesson that they've started to learn from.
And that's what I have the main concern with, and that's what I'm mostly worried about with Dragonflight. I think that what's going to happen is that, let's be honest, there are going to be things that are going to be released in Dragonflight and systems that are going to be in the game that are probably going to be fucking garbage. And that, why do I think that? Well, I don't think that because Blizzard's incompetent. I think that because every game has garbage systems like this on release, because many times they're not tested by players. And again, everybody has a great idea, and then whenever a million people.
I'm not a huge believer in something having to be tested by players to be good. You don't have to be a player who doesn't develop the game to be able to test the game. You just have to be a developer who plays your own game, who knows their own game. Like think of Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy 14 is not internally tested by players who don't develop the game in order for them to see if the content is going to be good or not. The content is mostly very good on release. Sometimes, yes, there are hiccups that are addressed, but those hiccups don't include unbeatable bosses or a huge discrepancy in damage dealing during, I don't know, raids when they first come out. Yes, there are problems, but those problems are also not as bad as, I don't know, having rogues or druids or whatever being the top of the damage list or whatever, and the rest of them just kind of sinking. It just doesn't happen, not, at least not in my experience. And I feel like you just need to play your own game. It's as easy as that. You have to play your own game, you have to love your own game, you have to understand your own game, and you have to take the time to participate in the game and within the community. You don't have to have a horde of horde of players going out there to test your game for free to see if your game is good or not. Also, some of the things that you do with the game, they don't necessarily have to be a secret until launch. You can have an active feedback. And yes, there are some things that you can't necessarily know what they're going to feel like, but if a community hears about a feature, and if 95% of the community says that it's a bad idea, it's probably a feedback to be taken in, like it was with the Covenant system. And the Covenant system also had a playable alpha, playable beta, and even after playing, people said that it sucked, and we still received it as it was meant to be. It's like, I don't know, it's like asking for someone's opinion, but your mind's already made up. I hate that.
Will start playing it, suddenly things are a little bit different. So I hope that the main thing is that they will hear this feedback that players are giving, and they will actually respond to it proactively. Because what happens, and what happens? You mean what happened? What's happened with Legion, BFA, and Shadowlands is that there have been obvious fucking problems. Legendary problems in Legion, BFA was Azerite and the Necklace, and then Shadowlands was Covenants and Conduits and things like this. These were obvious fucking problems that everybody saw. Some of these problems, we saw these before the alpha even came out, especially with Shadowlands, but Blizzard was like, oh no, oh no, see, you don't understand, like it's going to be totally different whenever you start playing the game. Well, guess what, people play the game and it's not.
I wonder if they actually played through the entire Covenant system, if the developers took the time to actually sit down, ride their asses through the entirety of Shadowlands, try to collect all the anima to upgrade all of their fucking Covenant features in all of their buildings and whatnot. And if they switch to an alt and they realize that after getting an achievement to an achievement for upgrading all the buildings, meaning that you'll be getting more anima or whatever. I wonder if anyone felt a little bad about rolling an alt and realizing that that achievement that it took you like weeks or months to grind out, that it just didn't apply to your alts. Like, I'm pretty sure that if one person did that, and that was me in Shadowlands, that was me, if they did do that, they would realize just how fucking bad of an experience that was for a player, knowing that you did take the time to get that achievement, but that achievement was just not account wide, and it didn't ease your alt progression on your other covenant, because yes, you spent time grinding your stupid anima, but who gives a shit, because that was just on some other character who technically has nothing to do with you.
And so people got pissed off about that. And I think that Blizzard did the one thing that I feel like every developer needs to avoid doing more than anything. And it's the thing that happened with New World is that Blizzard earned the resentment of players with doing this because people felt like the game was intentionally wasting their time. And do you know why they felt that way? It's because it was. And so whenever we're going to Dragonflight, they really, really, really need to make sure this doesn't happen.
For me, oh my god, this is gonna sound so bad, but but going from my transition from World of Warcraft to Final Fantasy 14 happened around the time when I was trying to main two MMOs, which is something that I guess a lot of us like. It's a trap that a lot of us fall into at some point, and you think like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be fine. But like with my 2 or 3 hours of gameplay that I can have in like during the night when my kid is asleep, I can't realistically do that. And I remember wanting to quest through through MSQ. I wanted to stream MSQ so badly, but Shadowlands and WoW have just been hindering me at doing that, because before I could even like start the stream or whatever and do mine, I did not want to stream me going around the Shadowlands map trying to collect anima. I was working towards these achievements because I was hoping that at some point they would realize that if you want to max out, I don't know, anima on all your characters, if you want to, not characters, covenants is what I meant, or even if you switch the covenant, like I don't know, like I was just hoping that they would fix that problem, that they would fix many other problems, and that gameplay would take around 2 hours a day. And after those 2 hours, my day would be over and I would get to log into Final Fantasy. I wouldn't want to do the MSQ off stream. I wouldn't want to start the stream because it was already like it would be off schedule anyways. But I wouldn't mind that. What I would mind is streaming for like half an hour, because that's like pretty much doing like one or two quests in Final Fantasy and having to go because you have to get up at like 5 in the morning next day. It was just a really rough time, and I realized that I am just never going to finish the storyline in Final Fantasy if I continue playing Final Fantasy while I'm still sitting there grinding Anima and grinding Torghast and trying to get my weekly Mythic Plus lockouts on my Grand Chest so that I can raid with my guild on certain nights that I also didn't really want to stream anymore because I was losing viewers whenever I would stream World of Warcraft, so I decided not to even be doing that. It was just a really messed up time for me, and I finally broke it off and said fuck anima, fuck everything that has to do with Shadowlands. I'm just not going to do it anymore. It's because the game just has you chained. The game doesn't allow you to do anything else whatsoever than just sit there and collect your stupid blue balls of flame that do nothing except for aggravate you because the glamour pieces that you buy with your anima are shitty looking and expensive. And if you're a collectionist, if you're just doing that for the sake of having those appearances in your collection, you can in Shadowlands, you can go fuck yourself pretty much because that is it's just it's such a bad experience. It's such bad content.
Happen. I'm talking about like I'm going to be very outspoken. I think everybody should be very outspoken about if there's some system in the game that it's like, hey, we're giving you this car, but it only has 3 wheels, and everybody's like, oh, why don't you put on the fourth wheel? And they're like, well, we'll see what happens. And then the fourth wheel gets put on in patch, I don't know, 10.25, and they say, we hear
Yeah.
you. I don't want to fucking hear that. I want to hear it very, very early on. I want the game to release in a finished state.
The fact that what disappoints me the most about this whole thing is that no one who is a World of Warcraft player, when they purchase the expansion, no one is initially hyped about the game that they're going to be playing, and no one says, oh man, I hope this is going to be so good, the game is going to be so awesome. This is something that you hear when people purchase other games. When people purchase World of Warcraft, all you can see, oh my god, I just hope this isn't a piece of shit. Like, how bad is that?
I don't want to have to beta test a shit system for 6 months before they get it fixed. It's not that's driving me. It's making me mad even thinking about it. Okay, so yes, I do not want to have to deal with that. I'm very concerned with that, and I hope that certainly does not happen. But we will have to see. Anyway, so that's also a big factor, and on top of that, I think that just in general, being able to iterate and change these systems based off of player behavior, and I think that is something that's going to make a bigger difference than anything else, because I think that a lot of times, like one of these expansions comes out, WoW expansions on release are generally pretty fun to play. I think that if you value your time at $1 an hour, if you are a WoW player, keep this in mind. Like if you play Fortnite, maybe you might not have that much fun. But if you're a WoW player, I think that you will generally get your money's worth whenever you buy a new expansion. I even got that with WoD because, well, I guess half the time there was spinning the queues. But anyway, it was a bad time. But what I am mainly concerned about again is the systems staying in the game longer than they have to, and then for them to be not iterated upon. Like the one thing that I don't want to see happen is I don't want to see an obviously broken system be shipped into the live game.
Do you know how bad it is for these systems not just to show up in the game, but also to just remain there forever? Like, imagine someone starts playing World of Warcraft and they want to go through, let's say, Battle for Azeroth and get like the achievements or whatever. What if you want to be an achievement hunter? And even if you play a good expansion, let's say Dragonflight is supposedly good, if you want to go back into like Shadowlands or into Battle for Azeroth or whatever, none of this shit gets fixed. And if you want to be an achievement hunter, you have to be constantly reminded of how shit certain sections of the game game were. Like you have such a discrepancy between experiences in Pandaria and Cataclysm and Wrath of the Lich King or whatever. It's just you can feel that those were different people every time, that those were different times every time, that there was a different idea every time, and those systems stay in the game forever if you want to engage with them, and the damage has already been done. With each bad expansion, the damage just continues to be done to the game, and these things just remain there even when patched up, even when fixed a little bit or whatever. Like you just can't get rid of them. You just can't get rid of them. You just have to play through them if you want to get those achievements done.
And Blizzard to fix it for content halfway through the patch. That is the one thing I don't want to see. And the reason why is because it goes back to what I said about people feeling like their time is being deliberately wasted. You see it, I see it, everybody fucking sees it. There's no secret, there's no, oh, I'm not really sure if, like, I don't know, it really depends on how you want to look at things. No, it's obviously fucking bad, and that's why they change it. And so basically, just respond to the feedback.
They changed some of it, but the core of the system still remains there. If you want to do your battle for Azeroth achievements, you still have to go through the damn necklace. If you want to do your Shadowlands achievements, you're still going to have to go through the fucking covenants. If you want to go and do the, okay, that's not really relevant, but if you want to do the cataclysm, you're still going to have to go through like a bunch of meaningless underwater quests that do you no good. And if you want to go through Warlords of Draenor achievements and garrisons, you're still going to have to sit in your dumbass garrison that hasn't been updated at all, that just serve no purpose. You're just going to have to play this solo game just for the sake of completing something. And I don't know how many people I'm speaking to when I say achievement hunters. Like I don't know how large of a portion that is, but it's a shame that there's less and less people who actually actively hunt achievements, because with World of Warcraft as an MMO, that has become not something that people want to do. People don't want to do completionism anymore because there are so many things that they don't want to complete anymore, and that is such a shame, because completionism is one of the greatest features an MMORPG can have, the feature that I personally enjoy, the feature that I engage with in Final Fantasy XIV, that I couldn't be happier to engage with. Yes, even with the fishing quests, with the relics, with whatever, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And with some things in World of Warcraft, you just can't.
Back on alpha and beta a lot faster. That's mainly the first thing. And the second thing that I want to talk about is alts. Now, alts have always been this like weird thing that Blizzard. I think that like ever since the race to world first and the amount of like min maxing people do, especially for like competitive WoW. Ever since this became like really popular, what ended up happening is that like Blizzard started trying to make it harder to play with alts and play alts in a certain way. And I think this is a bad thing. I think it's fucking stupid, to be honest with you. I think that if you go over and you play Final Fantasy XIV, go over and you play Lost Ark. One of the best things about those games is the fact that if you want to play another character, you don't have to grind your Mokoko seeds twice. You don't have to do the MSQ twice. All you have to do is level up the character, learn how to play it, do the quests for that character class, specifically your job in the case of Final Fantasy XIV, and you just play the character.
Well, as Final Fantasy XIV players, we do get a little well, we act a little spoiled sometimes, and sometimes we're like, oh, but you have to do all the job quests, you have to like go through like the stories, you have to do the role quests for other for your job in like what Endwalker and Shadowbringers. Like people still complain about these things, but if you've been through the trauma in World of Warcraft of rolling an alt and getting it to max level and putting it into any sort of use in Mythic Plus or Raids or whatever, going into Final Fantasy XIV is a fucking vacation.
Character itself. So basically, no arbitrary roadblocks. No, oh, I've got to farm artifact power on two characters. Who the fuck wants to do that? It's not fun. Nobody thinks this is enjoyable. Give people more account-wide progress. I am a big fan of attunements. I think attunements and raids are cool, but I don't think they're cool if they're not account-wide. I think that a lot of things in the game function as an attunement, and it's just that they're not seen that way because it's not a pass fail to get into the actual dungeon itself or the raid itself. But I do think that many things are effectively attunements in the game, in terms of like maybe getting your legendary cloak to do visions or to do Nazoth. That is effectively an attunement, and I think that's a very good thing. However, I do think that it has to be account wide. So I really hope, Blizzard, if you're listening to this, please make these systems. If you're gonna have some,
Not just the systems in the future. I think they also at the detriment of the people who have been through the systems, like your Azerite necklace or anima or whatever kinds of achievement, like wherever they can turn back and say, okay, we made a mistake here. I think they absolutely should do that. I think they need to go back and make these things easier to play through for someone who wants to go through the content in the past and not feel like it's a pain in the ass. One of my friends also said something that's very wise. He's the friend who never purchases a new World of Warcraft expansion when it comes out. He only plays WoW. Once the new expansion comes out, but he doesn't engage with it because he says that the best time to be playing that expansion, like the previous expansion, is after it's fully done. I find it fascinating actually. He will just go and he will constantly be 10 levels under everyone else, and he will still have a little bit of like sense of difficulty going through, I don't know, quests or whatever. But at the same time, so many things will be fixed at the end of the expansion that he just never buys the expansion at the full price. He always waits for like the next expansion to already be rolled or announced to get this one for like what, 20 or $40 or whatever, however much it is, so that he can play it in 2 years. Like what a sad way to play an MMORPG. Like that, it's just something to think about.
something like this, if you're gonna have a progression system, please make them account wide. Ian, bro, you said that people do alts to farm renown. Bro, what the fuck are you talking about? No, they don't. Like, no, they fucking don't. Like, there's no shot. And like, for every person that does that, there's like 100 other people that don't. Like, I'm telling you, people. Here's what my
Like, where did they even get these numbers? Like, oh, this person is doing this because this and that. But that's like almost never the case when they say something.
opinion is, right, with alts. I think people play alts because they want to do the raids, they want to do the PvP, and they want to do Mythic Plus. Or they maybe want to do like really cool world content, like be able to solo like certain boss, be able to kill like 100 mobs at a time for like a super efficient farming method. That's what I did in Mists of Pandaria, for example, with like a Moonkin or a Warlock. But I think in general, it is those three end game paths: PvP, raiding, or Mythic Plus.
Yeah.
And if you put any barriers that are outside of doing those three things in front of making your alt and making your alt able to do those three things, you are now putting a barrier between.
It just sucks that those three things are the only three things that absolutely matter. Like I don't know, like when I started playing Final Fantasy 14, I was in awe with how many things you can do that are hard, that are challenging, and that are recognized by players as something valuable to spend your time on. Because at the end of the day, no one really wants to go and admit this, but when you do something in an MMORPG, you kind of want people to recognize you for what you've done. If you get like a necromancer title, you want to equip it in Final Fantasy, because that means that you've freaking soloed that content, and it is something to be proud of. And the other members of the community, most of them who know about it, will see it as something special. Like, you want more of these special things that you can say, oh, I specialize in this or in that or whatever. Some people even go as far as to say, oh, I specialize in gold saucer. I have all the gold saucer mounts. I have like all the cards and I have the card mount or whatever. And it's something that most World of Warcraft players will like laugh at. Like, what, you play cards in an MMORPG and you're proud of some card mount? But that content is hard. Like, you actually have to play dungeons and raids and play through side quests that will unlock different card game NPCs that you can then farm and play against and wait for a card to drop from them so that you can get that card mount. It takes so much effort to actually get to that mount or any other hard mount that isn't necessarily tied to like raiding or mythic dungeons or whatever. I think WoW just needs more of these relevant things. Some people in World of Warcraft are pet collectors with so many pets and so many achievements, but that's not recognized because there's not such a thing as a viable pet PvP game or whatever that people will actively participate in. Yes, there's a PvP mode, but you only play it when there's a bonus week for that, or when you get a quest or whatever. Like they don't have anything of the sort going on that other people find to be valuable. And even when you do something in an MMO that's hard, that takes a lot of your time, when everyone else tells you that's shit content and that no one else does that, it just does kind of feel bad. Like that was me in World of Warcraft. Like, I used to collect pets, but no one ever gave a shit. Like, my friends would laugh at me for collecting pets. I would never have anyone to actually fight because no one does PvP battles. It was just like not the content that people engage with. And even like you're just lonely in that experience, and that just feels so bad. Like, it feels like they don't advertise other pieces of content that they do have at all. If they made Torghast a standalone feature that had nothing to do with legendaries, and if they made it hard and if they made it engaging, they would have had Torghast experts by now who only willingly engage with Torghast, whose content is Torghast, that they log in for, that they sub for, or whatever, just because it's a recognized standalone feature that can, do the job of standing alone. Actually, when they announced Torghast for the first time, I thought that's what it was gonna be, and it got me excited because I thought that was gonna be like the fourth thing. We have PvP, raids, Mythic Plus, or whatever. I thought Torghast was gonna be that first big next thing that you can do in game and say, hey, this is what I specialize in, and it ended up being a piece of shit.
The player and being able to enjoy what they want to do in the game. And I ask you, why? Why is this the case? Why is this happening? And I don't see any reason for it. So I would love to see a lot of these, again, we hear you. And, oh, we're going to make these changes. We're listening to feedback. Well, listen to it earlier this time before people quit. The fact is that I had 8 level 80 characters back in Wrath of the Lich King. 2 reasons for that. Number 1, I was unemployed. Second reason is that it was actually fun to play alts. And I think a lot of other people did the same thing. We made characters, we leveled them up, and we did the dungeons and the raids, and, we experienced playing the game through that new set of eyes. I remember whenever, I think it was patch 4.3, whenever you guys took the cooldown off Chain Lightning. Yeah, I made a fucking elemental shaman that day. It was awesome. And so that's the kind of stuff that I want to see people be able to do. And it was really fun because there were very few barriers to entry for me to be able to actually start playing the character in the way that I wanted to. So I think that the gear progression and all of the meta systems and account-wide, like character progression systems like artifact knowledge, renown, covenants, conduits, bullshit like that, make all that account-wide right from the start. And some person that plays the game 85 hours a week professionally might be able to get a 3% advantage because of this. Okay, that's fine. Nobody cares.
No.
Let's make the game fun instead. Imagine that. Wow. So yeah, that's the way I feel. That's what my concerns are. Listening to player feedback, and primarily in the context of alts. Alts provide a breath of fresh air into the game. They make old content new again, and they give players the opportunity to see the game through a new set of eyes, through a new window, however you want to say it. And I really hope that Blizzard is able to do this.
Yeah.
I've got a bunch of other things I want to talk about. Things like, like making raid content irrelevant inside of the expansion that was made in. I think this is a big problem. But I think that
It is, but I think their house is so on fire that they don't even have time to just like sit down and think about what they could do to retain players in that sort of way. I think they first need to like sit down and resolve these actually burning issues and then think about how they're going to make their game just overall better. I would love to see this, but I'm not seeing it happen anytime soon.
all of these things are fundamentally coming down to these two main concerns, which is listening to feedback on a fundamental level and making alts playable with as little barriers to entry as possible, other than the consumption of the content that the alt was created to do. So, guys, I'm really excited for Dragonflight.
Every time he's like, guys, I'm like, oh, I'm not the target group.
Why? Because I played WoW for 15 years. I want to play the game. I love the game. I hope it continues to do well. And that's why I'm making this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you have other things that you'd like to see Blizzard do, or, let's be honest, other things you'd like to see Blizzard not
Not
do,
do.
go ahead and let me know. I'm quite curious about it. But those are my main concerns. That's what I really want to see. And I guess we'll see what happens in just about a week from now. I'll see y'all later.
Honestly, I don't have much to add to this except for when it comes to accepting general feedback. I also think that they need to be better at updating. Like I'm not saying that I don't know Ashes of Creation is perfect, that Final Fantasy 14 is perfect or whatever. But I think that those companies are developing in a way that they're recognizing the importance of a relationship with the audience. And that's not a like okay, getting yourself an email once a month with a developer's update that maybe has like a video attached of a live stream or a Q&A that they did in Ashes of Creation, or having that live letter. It may not sound like a big deal, but it gets the community excited and engaged and involved. And I think that like during press conferences, like when you have like a very important person just standing there and answering questions, most of the press who will ask questions, like they will sound very, I don't know, frustrated and mean. Maybe they have to sound like that, like for example when I don't know when people speak with I don't know presidents or whatever, like you can hear that little bit of like resentment in a lot of people's voices, like a lot of the press's voices. And I'm not saying what I want to say is that Blizzard often is acting like some sort of president who shows up at a press conference once in I don't know in a blue moon, instead of just kind of sitting down with the community and just kind of touching the same ground that everyone else is standing on, and just being friendly, being open without these fake ass questions and answers of a few select questions from Twitter that they already wrote the replies to beforehand. Like why not just have a team of mods who will pick questions from the chat where you will actually have some live interaction, where you won't feel like their replies had to go through three different levels of checks to even make it into the public. Why not just be a little bit more spontaneous, a little bit more open with the community, just so that people can actually feel heard and not just cherry picked whenever their question from Twitter or whatever gets picked for the next like big wow Q&A or something like that. Just be a little bit more open, be a bit more approachable. I'm not saying they need to be best friends with the community, but the community needs to feel like there are real people behind these accounts, that these interviews that they sometimes do, that they are not all fully scripted and prepared. It just sucks to be feeling that way when compared to what happens within the community of some other MMOs. Like I have a bunch of things to say, but nothing that I want to bring up right now in this video. This video was very very good, and I really enjoyed watching it. I'd say make sure to subscribe to Asmongold, watch it, but chances are that if you're watching this, you are probably already subscribed to Asmongold and not to me. So yeah, do me a favor instead. And if you like the content, make sure to sub. This is actually my my variety channel. I have my main channel down in the description, which is a Final Fantasy 14 oriented at the moment. And on this one, I upload like playthroughs and different commentaries for many different games that I play and some of my IRL stuff. So if you're interested in that, all the links are in the description. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm very, very, very interested in hearing you and knowing what you have to say about Dragonflight and how you feel about all these upcoming things. And yeah, I'll see you soon.